Hello, 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 everybody. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Live and direct from Seattle. This is Mark Hatcher. You guys might know me from my day job as Global Sales Manager for Amazon Turkey, or you may know me from one of the many events that I've done over at Ben or with Connected Amazon. But right now, I have the pleasure of being in the presence of four dynamic, talented, wonderful women who are going to rock the house today with me. So let me give you a little bit about my background, and then we're going to get on to the main event because you guys don't need me serving you appetizers all day. You want the real deal, and I'm going to bring it to you. Okay. So I've been at Amazon about 4 years, mostly in the sales and account management capacity, but I've done a lot of this kind of stuff on the side. If you know me a little bit about me, you know that I hail from Detroit, Michigan. And, I come to you from many successful stops of progressive responsibility amongst Fortune 500 companies. And I'm here to represent today for, all of those folks as well as for my folks back home. Um, this is a part of the presence over perfection series. And that means you don't have to be perfect, but you got to be present. And this series is going to highlight the diverse corporate and technical prowess of influencers from all over the world. So we won't just be playing in the Amazon community today. We're going to also play, in the global communities. You'll see the women that we'll be talking to today. They're from various parts of the country with various levels of expertise, and all of them have dual handles, if you will. So that's good stuff, and it's always good to know, right? So this series will highlight business and civic leaders for their ability to overcome adversity and just kind of earn positions of influence and use those positions to actually work for them in their community. It will showcase vision and leadership skills. And in addition to doing that, we will also have a little fun along the way. So the purpose here is to have these candid conversations and make sure that people are able to understand the trials and tribulations that they've come through, but also the triumphs that they landed on as a result of that. And the work is not done. The work is not done at all. So for today's group, I got four. I like to say four bosses, if you will, or four diamonds, and I'll start off calling all their names, and then I'm going to give them the floor to take about a minute to introduce themselves individually. Well, first we got Keisha KG Garrison. So, hey, Keisha. We have Tiffany Tiff J Johnson. You guys might know Tiffany because she walks the hallowed halls of Amazon and does a lot of great things. Hey, Tiff. And we have Adrienne Keepler. I know her as Keith, but you guys will get to know her as a lot of things before this call is over. And then you have Crystal, as in Crystal Clear Nixon. So she'll be crystal clear when she's talking to you guys, and we'll go from there. So with that, I'm going to step away for a second, and I'm going to yield the floor, and we can go in that same order. Would you ladies just kind of just give a quick 1 minute overview of yourself before we jump into the actual dialogue?
All right, I guess that means I'm up first. Thank you so much, Mark, for inviting me to this forum today. My name is Keisha Garrison, and I am from Oakville, Louisiana, a super small town in the deep South, one of those socially segregated type of places that I had to, escape from, if you will. And I'm one of five from that town, one of five. And I'm a graduate of Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. Extra proud to be a Spelman alumna. And I am currently the Director of Culture and Communications for the AI Platform Engineering team at Microsoft. And I've been at Microsoft for about 8 years. And that was after a pretty varied career with different things in the publishing industry, other software companies. And in addition to that, I also am a professional event MC and host and interviewer. And I am the curator for the online directory Another Black Girl that celebrates the passions, pursuits, and excellence of other Black women and girls. And I'm the mom of a little Black girl, a 10-year-old named Lauren. So that's the scoop on me.
There you go. Thank you. Tiff J, you're up.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark. Really grateful to be here and see where I can add value to someone else's life. So, as Mark mentioned, I'm Tiffany Johnson. I'm a program manager of the Black Business Accelerator, a program that was recently launched. And I'm the CEO and founder of Muzi, a feminine care, wellness, and beauty brand that is heavily focused on creating equal access and awareness to more sustainable feminine care wellness products. Been with Amazon for about 5 years, my first job out of college, and I've been here ever since. I've navigated through several careers here: environmental health and safety specialist, PR community specialist, sales, and then now I'm here as a program manager. Really excited to be here, and looking forward to sharing the stage with these amazing women.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this
All
is
right.
exciting. I am Adrienne Keepler. I am called Keep, so any of you here can also call me Keep as well. Like Keisha, I've already determined two things, or heard two things that we connect on, and I describe myself as a connector. So I love that we're going to have fun. That is something that I really pride myself on. I was raised in a small town in South Carolina by two professors who made it their life's journey to teach at HBCUs. They were both HBCU graduates. I'm also a Spelman grad, and Mark and I knew one another in college and have remained friends all of these 30 plus years. I have been in health benefits, the health benefits industry. I'm currently a consultant, a health benefits and welfare consultant with a large international firm. And so that's my day job. I started out with a large insurance carrier as an underwriter, but my mom, who was also a professor, also is an entrepreneur and role model for me. And I love fashion and style. And so I'm also a Stella and Dot stylist ambassador, and that's a skincare and accessories company. And I'm an independent stylist for Stella and Dot. So it's a marriage of all of that for me.
So all that stuff you're looking at is legit. Look at her. Look at her. Go ahead, Crystal.
My name is Coach Crystal Dixon. I am an accountant and financial social worker. I am the only certified financial social worker in the state of Michigan. So what I do is I counsel people who have gambling addictions, shopping addictions, people who were living in poverty and maybe have come into large amounts of money. I went to school at EMU, Eastern Michigan University in Michigan, and then that didn't go off well, as you probably will hear later on in this session. And then I revisited the idea of college later on and graduated from Baker College of Business here in Michigan.
That's good. That's a good preamble. You know, in my research and looking at you guys' bios and backgrounds and companies to discover things that I don't know about you already, a lot of interesting things came up. And one of the things that really stood out was how you guys began. So I would like to just kind of tap into some of the stories around some of the first work you've done and some of the things that have served as the foundation for the things you're trying to accomplish today. So can someone maybe tell me about the first work experiences they had and how it shaped what they're doing today? Mm-hmm.
I'll go.
What? Mm-hmm.
So back when I was younger, like in my 20s, which was like 15, 20 minutes ago, when I was younger, I went back to school, as I said. This was after I had come off of being homeless. So in my 20s, I was homeless for a couple of years. And I decided that it was, after about 2 years, it was time for me to do something and stop waiting on something to happen. I started going back to school, and I saw an announcement on the bulletin board, and it said, "Hey, would you like to volunteer to do taxes? The IRS will train you, and you can help your community." And I said, "Sure, I'll volunteer." So the first day I went in, and I had my daughter, who was 2, on my hip. And I had her goldfish in her little baggie, and she had her sippy cup. And I sat her in the corner on the floor while I prepared people's tax returns, like I was taught in school. And so after that, the manager came up to me and said, "Would you like to work here?" And I'm like, "Work? No way." So I kept volunteering because I had a small baby and I didn't have a sitter and all those things when I was younger. So I kept volunteering, and eventually I became an employee. I became program manager. I started teaching tax law to everybody across the state of Michigan and opening up their own volunteer sites. And now I'm here right now owning my own tax and accounting business. So that is how I started. I started volunteering, and it led to here, crazily.
That's good. That's good insight, because, so often you hear stories of people who have blown up to do bigger and better things, who started off, volunteering or working for little to no income at all.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, if you're on this call and you're listening and you have an aspiration that may be outside of what you think your current vertical is, it may be an opportunity for you to volunteer or work for a smaller amount just so you can get the experience and do some some other great things. And I think if I recall correctly, Tiffany, you had a pretty interesting story and a pretty interesting background too. Would you mind sharing some of that with us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what tracing back to where it all started, I would like to pin it on my parents, just them being individuals who I call them nomads. They were nomads because I was born in Guyana and we moved to St. Lucia, moved back, and then finally I came to the US, not intending to stay, but because of situation that happened with my family, I ended up staying as a little girl. I believe I was about 12 or 13. Didn't know much of what was going on, but then slowly found out that I was undocumented. And what that meant was you couldn't work, you weren't afforded the same opportunities as someone that was born in the US. So I think my first job was really something that I had to kind of get a little bit creative about, walking from door to door, asking neighbors if I can shovel their snow or sweep their leaves or even braiding some of my classmates' hair. So I would date that back to a lot of what propelled me to what I'm doing today. And I am a business owner. I love thinking big, creating new ideas and solving problems because at a young age I had to problem solve around my current circumstances.
And I think that's a great story because it shows you that even as a young person, Tiffany had a presence about her and a drive to be successful. And she didn't wait for someone to chart a path for her. She didn't wait for a roadmap. She just got out and started doing things and didn't let what she couldn't do define what she could do. And I think that's very, very good. And I think we could all learn something from there. So I would say, Keisha, what was your first professional job?
Oddly enough, when you were talking about taxes, Crystal, it caught my ear because the first professional place I ever worked was a tax assessor's office. Back when I was in high school, after I was just like, I can't do McDonald's not another day. Can I please find something else to do? If I carry one more fry box from the freezer. Ooh, so getting a job with the tax assessor where I would file property grids, I'd do this whole update this filing system that they had for all of the property all over the parish that I lived in. And I would help calculate all the taxes that each business owed all over the parish based on the property that they had. So I did that every single summer that I was in college. I would come home and I would be calculating the taxes for the businesses in Allen Parish. And they probably didn't know that a teenager / early 20-year-old person was doing those taxes for them, but that's what I was doing.
No, that's good. I mean, hell, if you can do it, you should do it. And it's an important job. And it's amazing how sometimes the barriers that we as adults put on learning and on responsibilities are not embraced by children, and children can actually carry those things out. And you call yourself a young adult, so I won't call you a child there. So I want to make sure I respect the game.
It's a respect for my tax calculating name.
That's right. Keith, what was your first job like?
Man, I'm listening. I left Spelman without really knowing what my passion was, I believe, and so I went to grad school. It was not my passion. And, after leaving after a year, I went to a career fair just sort of on a whim because it was I was in South Carolina. I had gone back home to South Carolina and the career fair was in Atlanta. So it really was a weekend for me to go party with my friends again. But I told my parents that I was going to this career fair, but I got offered a job on the spot with a large insurance carrier. And it moved me to Connecticut within a month. I had never been that far north outside of being born in New York. And it was super cold, but it was the foundation for the 30 plus year career that I currently have. And I did find that I met some great people and all of that. I did find that the training that I got and just sort of being knocked in the face with the reality of making a very entry level salary, being somewhere that was so completely diverse in a different way from what I was raised in, actually sort of gave me a bit of the grit that I have now. So, you know, I had a cute title. I was a financial underwriter and had my first business cards and used the fax machine for the first time. But I also learned to bring my true authentic self. And, you know, that's a term that's being used a lot, but I really live by that mantra. I remember on one of the first few days, my manager asked me to come to his office, and he used the term "after you get your coffee." And I don't drink coffee. I drink tea. And at the age of 22, 23, I said, well, I actually don't drink coffee, and I drink tea. So I will meet you. And I felt a little emboldened, you know, and he said, you know what, that's a good lesson for me, because I just made an assumption that you drink coffee. So there was something that sort of created this, you know, having your space in a way that you want to have your space. So
We're getting some background noise. I don't know if we need background noise to kind of drowned out last few seconds. Okay, looks like we're okay now. So I don't know what happened there, but hopefully we can keep it that way. So I mean, Crystal, your impetus for doing what you do now was pretty damn obvious. So I would say, Keisha, can you speak to how your first role kind of set you up for the role that you're in now?
Well, sure. When I left Spelman, I actually went into the publishing industry, and I went to Time Inc. in New York and got a chance to see a lot of things that were very foreign to me as a young girl from the South, getting into this place where I didn't really understand what was really going on in the background. So one of the things that I got into very early on in my career was I tapped into those other people who were in the area, in the environment that I was in, or that also needed to learn what I needed to learn. Yeah. And that might be my fancy way of saying, like, the rest of the Black people that were that did not have all of the network that a lot of people already seem to have access to. We really got together and started thinking about, okay, so what are the things that we need to learn? And what are the things that we think some other people like us might also need to learn? So very early on when I was at Time Inc., me and probably like 2 other Black people, we decided to launch this networking one-on-one series. And just because we thought it was needed in the community, and we thought that our folks needed it because we needed it. And it was very tactical, very hands-on. How do you navigate this? It's not going to be pie in the sky concepts. We were giving people worksheets to fill out. Here's how you build this grid. Here's how you do this thing. Here's how you analyze a magazine masthead to figure out who you might want to talk to. So we went on the road, if you will, and we did this very the extensive roadshow across all of the AOL Time Warner businesses. And being very early on in my career, it showed me very quickly that I've entered this space where I don't really have the context to navigate. It taught me early on to be the catalyst, to get the I needed and to also spread it to other people. And so I took that with me everywhere I went. I always would go in and figure out, what do I need to learn, and then how do I teach it? And it really just did start this natural progression of me getting very comfortable talking to people and teaching other people no matter where I went. And it wasn't until I got to this place where I am now, where I'm doing all of these like mission-driven speeches and event navigations and leading these moments, where I look back and I say, I've been doing this. I've just been doing it in a much less formal way. It was always part of what I just picked up to put in the bag while I was doing my regular job, because I was a marketing and partnership professional at Time Inc. That wasn't my job. I was just taking that on because I thought it was needed. And so I just kept on looking at different opportunities to do that. And that started for me very early on when I started in the publishing industry.
Man, well, that was so many nuggets in that thing. Man, my goodness, you talked about organic networking, and that's kind of resonates with this group and people who are listening, because just by finding the need or asking for the space and then creating it is how Ben was founded. And Ben, for those of you who don't know, is the Black Employee Network. And then also the road show and the catalyst. And, I thought it was interesting that in essence you said, you don't have to arrive because you're already there, because you already know how to do it. And I think that's a great caveat. As mentioned previously, all of you women are entrepreneurs and have, secondary careers and a lot of good things going on. Can you share what your inspiration was for starting your business seeking a secondary career? Tiff, can you speak to that a little bit?
I can. So for me, it started out of seeing a problem. So I think it was about 2 years ago, I decided to swap to a menstrual cup just to be a little bit more sustainable and reduce the number of waste that I'm contributing towards the earth. And one of my friends, my colleague at work, a white woman, she said, "Have you ever tried a menstrual cup?" And I was like, "No, but I'll try it." And I remember buying my first menstrual cup. It was literally a game changer. I would brag to my best friends back home in New York, like, "Guys, I tried this cup. It's amazing. You guys have to try it." And none of them knew what a menstrual cup was. So that took me to social media, and I ran a poll on my Instagram. And I remember it was about 100 and something Black women that responded to the poll when I asked, "Have you guys ever heard of a menstrual cup or used one?" And over 95% of them said no, they've never heard of a menstrual cup. And it was insane. I said, okay, there's clearly a need for this. But at that time, I didn't take action. What really pushed me to take an action, I think it was maybe a week or two after that, I was watching Killer Mike's Netflix series where he tried to live Black for 3 days. And just looking at things like the bed, the toothbrushes, transportation, to live a comfortable life, it was just so hard for him to find the items from a Black-owned business. And that was an eye-opener to me that said, you know what, why don't you just launch the menstrual cups? And in Guyana, we call, a woman's part, we call it poozy. So I was like, I remember joking with my brother, and he was like, "Moozy for the poozy." So we came up with Moozy. We came up with Moozy, and I remember reaching out to the manufacturers, testing different products, and Moozy became a thing, and we launched October 2020. And from there, God has just really opened the doors for us to grow and to scale further on.
Moozy for the poozy. I like that. But I mean, again, you heard great nuggets in there, and then you also heard her, give reference to God in the end for respecting a higher power, no matter what you believe in. I think that is super duper awesome. And let me ask you this, ladies, because all of you are dabbling in two different worlds at least some of the time now. Does the approach to execution differ when you're in your corporate role versus your entrepreneurial role?
Really? Oh, I'm sorry. Am I muted? Hello?
Yeah,
okay.
You're not anymore.
Not really. I didn't mention where I work as far as corporately. I work as a tax law expert for Intuit. And the reason I got my job, I was told, was because I was charismatic on camera and with the people on the phone, and I knew what I was talking about. So you have people who are very charismatic and can work a room and can do everything, but then they lack the substance that they need. And then you have people who have the substance and the education, but they're so blah. And then you have me, who always felt like a neon green Teletubby everywhere I went, because I never fit in anywhere. And now I'm doing exactly what I, do anyway, outside of work, for work, because of the personality like I have. So it's kind of like I didn't have to do any switchover. The reason I was hired to be a tax law analyst was because I was already me. And they were like, "We like her. We like you. We want you to work for us." And I'm like, "Yay!"
I have to agree with Crystal. I bring my same self. Well, I try. I definitely, there are some politics and some cultural norms at my full time that aren't necessarily who I am as a person, that I had to navigate. But I'm an Aries. I am on the cusp. I am really an Aries. I consider myself a natural born leader, but I'm also very diplomatic. And so I bring that to both spaces. I'm very much a we person. I see that, and I have a team with my Stella and Dot side hustle, if you will. And I've had direct reports on the corporate side, and it gets under my skin, the emails that are I and not we, and not OUI, but WE, as it relates to teamwork and working collectively. And, I definitely try to bring that same person. You asked the question about inspiration. I failed to mention that I've been married for 23 years, and I have a daughter who's 22 that just graduated from college. And I would say that my mom, who's an entrepreneur, and my daughter as my legacy, absolutely were the strongest part of my foundation for sort of starting this side hustle. But I also love perks and discounts and little pocket change so that I can do the things I want to do. So I can admit, that it's nice to have a little extra. And I am in Cabo now because I won a glam award trip through Stella and Dot. So I have to mention that.
I can share a little bit. I wouldn't say that my approach to execution is different, but I'll tell you what had to adjust is more so me understanding my motivation and how I apply my why to my corporate work. Because as I went on the journey of understanding what I wanted to spend my Keisha time doing, that required me to get really clear on who am I and what impact do I want to make on the world. And the more clear that got, the more I had to look at the corporate stuff and be like, do you align? And make sure that in that work, it still felt like I was able to be serving my ultimate Keisha purpose. And so I give you an example. One of the things that I care about very much is making sure that Black women are able to kind of live in their full magic. I want to celebrate us. I want to look at the things that we need. And I always want to be marching towards how I make the world better for Black women, whether that's a stand-up thing that I do, and I'm making sure that I'm delivering things that are, helpful to people, enlightening them about Black women, whether that's a speech or whatever it is. But I look at my work, I do communications and culture work for an engineering team at a large corporation. To be honest, if I look at that space and I try to solve for what are the needs of the Black women in that space, and let me be honest, there's not a lot of us, but because of where we live at this intersection of so many isms, if I solve for some of those issues, I'm probably making things very wonderful for a lot of people. It's not just going to serve those Black women. So when I look at it, I just have to look at my corporate work and figure out, how does it connect? How can I go into that space and feel like the whole way that I live my life is in service of the purpose that I have as a person. Their why is different from my why. So I have to find a way that when I spend my time in my corporate space, it's still helping me feel like I'm fulfilling my bigger purpose.
Wow. There's so many gems there, but that holistic alignment, whew, that was pretty deep there. Holistic alignment. Wow. And then Black women in their full magic. I mean, if this ain't magical enough, and then you bringing them the full magic, I'm like, gosh, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me 3 times. I love it. Can you guys speak to the fortitude required? I mean, Keisha just talked a little bit about, about how she shows up. What about the fortitude that's required for sustenance? Keep, I heard a deep sigh out of you.
That deep sigh is well earned. I'm wait. I just was on my soapbox, but go ahead, somebody.
I mean, because honestly, I have agreed to navigate both of these worlds, but I have to have boundaries as it relates to work-life balance, and what I require for me to live. And sometimes, I'm not going to eat that. I don't want to eat that crow, but I've got to use the diplomacy and have certain conversations. And sometimes, I kind of have to look to the side, like, did you just say, or do you expect? So that fortitude is having years of experience in business and taking the life lessons from mistakes that I've made or the environment that I'm in, and really just trying to work around it, because I don't live for the weekends, but I live for the weekends. I work to play, and I really mean that. Work hard, play harder, and it sometimes requires that you find the best way to create a boundary. Everybody's boundaries aren't your boundaries, and it's been interesting, specifically during this time of pandemic, to see how others that I work with are showing up to work, and I don't mean what you wear from the waist up necessarily, but just how it's affecting people mentally, and the fortitude that they're bringing to sort of work through this, and they're rushing to get back, and I may not be rushing to get back to the office. So it's just a very interesting dynamics that build up that fortitude.
For me, as a financial professional and a woman, and then a Black woman, I get it all the time. I get it from everybody. There is no one sector that gives it to me more or less. As soon as people see me and they find out what I do, they start asking what my credentials are. Like, this is the first panel that hasn't asked, like, what degrees do you have? What certifications do you have? Anytime I enter a room, everybody immediately wants to know my credentials, because why are you here? So I have had to develop some very, very thick skin on this already thick body. And it works pretty well for me. But yeah, so as far as fortitude, that's the main, I would say, pain in the butt for me. I've had to really learn how to keep my mouth shut and let my work prove itself and let myself prove herself, and just keep it moving, because being in the financial realm, you're tested consistently all the time.
And I think, Keisha, you were going to ask something earlier, but you deferred a bit.
Yeah, I love that we talked about boundaries a little bit, because one of the things that I've had to develop and that I encourage other, especially young Black women to develop, is this understanding that there's so many large forces that we come up against, whether it's, how a capitalist machine operates. It's not designed for our well-being. How sometimes our intimate relationships or our family relationships, sometimes the dynamic is not set up to prioritize our well-being. We take on a lot. And so we're also dealing with people who may not understand their own relationship to those structures yet. So they will put expectations on you. And I have to come into any professional spaces, all the spaces, with clear understanding that you might not know how to manage that for you, but I need to know how to manage it for me. And I am my first and best caretaker. Okay. I got to take care of me first and best. And the defense of that in all these different places, being able to say, you know what, I see you, boss, saying that all of these things have to get done. And you can look at the list and it might be the work of 2.5 people. And because, to be honest, people are used to sometimes Black women putting it on the back and just carrying it. That sounds reasonable to them. But I have said out loud to a person, listen, there are limits to what I'm willing to train myself to handle. Mm-hmm. That state of things is too much. Because I have learned that the plate will get full and full and full if I don't just go ahead and say, I can, but I'm not willing to train myself to handle that many things. So let's not. And we have to be able to do that and put the boundaries up, because sometimes that person doesn't even understand boundaries for themselves, and they will apply their value system to you and your time. And we can't have that. So that's kind of my daily practice of fortitude to kind of protect myself and my peace and my time to do my side business.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more with Adrienne. She mentioned work-life balance, and that's something that I'm constantly having to teach myself, and I'm not very good at it. I'm not good at work-life balance. I think I'm in the season where I have to figure out, okay, well, I have my full-time job and I have my business. And in some instances, one will require more of my time. It's never a 50-50 thing. It may be where I need to put 80% of my time here and then 20% of my time here. And I've just been fortunate to have my family members here with me when I moved to Seattle. The bargain I made with my husband is that my family moved with me since his family is here. So I have my mom and my sisters out here that I can lean on. And times where, I feel really overwhelmed or, can't really work the way that I want to. I love putting this out there as a Black woman. Therapy is so important. I'm married, been married for 5 years, got married at 21, and that's something that really helped myself and my husband trot through a lot of the trials and tribulations that we face. And we still go to therapy, and it's helped me a lot in terms of how I show up at work, how I show up in my friendships, how I show up in my business. It didn't only help my marriage. So that's something I would love, love, love to put out there for sure.
I want, if I can share something, and it's really exciting to be here with all of the ladies, but especially with Tiffany. We have an age gap, if you will, and and I say that because you're inspiring to me, and it's enlightening. I'm in the healthcare industry, and only within the last 10 years are we using language like well-being and wellness and self-care, and in a way that empowers the workers, if you will, the employees of the company to also think about that. So when I started out at 22 or 23, I wasn't making much. So that was kind of my attitude. Like, I'm going to give the company the 9 to 5 because I'm not making much more than this. But I also wasn't in a position to think about pouring back into myself so much because it wasn't the conversation. And I think, it's really nice to hear that when I meet a more a less experienced, I won't say more junior, but a less experienced colleague, that they are in a position where that's the conversation we're having. So that will help you to create that work-life balance that you're looking for. I wasn't using those terms back then because I didn't know it. I clocked out. I moved up pretty quickly, but that's just because, but I clocked out, on the weekends and came back on Monday. And so I don't know if I had a lot of work-life balance, but it's great. All the things that you're talking about. And it's nice that we're in a time where it's transparent in that way. So.
No, and I think that's good. I think all of those self-help terms around therapy, around wellness, around work-life balance, and those things are central to our development now. And I think they're central to because, no longer do we have to be happy with just having a seat at the table. We can ask for things that we need as well in order for us to have that sustenance that I spoke of earlier, but also so that we can bring our full selves forward. Because if we can bring our full selves forward, then we can truly accentuate the diverse perspective that they say that they want us to have in most instances, right? And I think with the newfound wokeness or the newfound awareness or however people want to call it, based upon us being able to fully express ourselves and us being Black people, expressing ourselves for what we need, what we want, what we desire to function in these spaces, it's important for us to practice self-care. It's important for us to speak our minds and carve out our spaces. And last but certainly not least, it's important for us to speak up when we see something that is not germane to our success and our overall development. So I appreciate you ladies going pretty deep on that. That was therapeutic in itself, So has the newfound awareness around Black issues that really peaked, I think, in sometime in 2020. How has that impacted your collective businesses?
Me? Okay. I actually had the best tax season professionally that I've ever had during COVID. FYI, I was sick last year. I'm just now getting a clean bill of health this year, this summer almost. I got sick on March 27, 2020. I'll never forget it. But during that time, I was in bed virtually on Zoom having appointments, doing people's returns, things like that. But for me, my business was coined as a mobile tax business. So I would come to you if you were handicapped, if you had kids and you didn't want to come out because it was January. If you were at work at your business, I would come to your business in the back and prepare your S Corp, whatever you needed me to do. But anyway, so for 2020, it was a very good year. And I think it was pretty good because people tended to start using tools that we've had for a long time that they shied away from, like Zoom, like electronics, like Wi-Fi. Like I had a lot of clients who didn't want to work with me because they couldn't upload documents or they couldn't figure out the link to Zoom. And basically what happened is once these people started using Zoom and getting comfortable with the software, we were able to meet outside of work and we were able to see each other and contact each other and be in each other's presence without physically being in each other's presence. So that's the biggest takeaway I had from 2020 and the pandemic and my work, is that I was able to, I guess, usher in some people to technology so that we could keep in touch better and check on each other and make sure we were all, okay, and being able to help each other.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And I think we're all okay. We're good and we can all be better. And that's why we got to keep supporting each other until we get there. Anybody else want to opine on that?
Yeah,
I'll weigh in. Go, Keisha.
No, go
I'll just weigh in. You asked a question about, Black Lives Matter. I think that was sort of the theme there. And interestingly, the model of Stella and Dot is, and there's 17,000 ambassadors or stylists, if you will, who are independent stylists with Stella and Dot. And the model is that I would pack up these jewelry and accessories, come to Keisha's house, she'd pour some wine, we'd have some yummy foods around the kitchen area, and we play in all this jewelry and accessories and stuff, and you make a purchase from me, and then you have all your fun stuff. And I, because of my sort of personal travel schedule and work, was not able to really do much under that model. So I had promoted up to a certain level, but this virtual time, being at home, really afforded me an opportunity to kind of pivot and use a platform just like this to show my wares. So and have fun and sip on the call, and you could wear whatever you want, come as you are. And so from a business perspective, I did much better during this time, interestingly, than I had been sort of in previous years. It also taught me I wanted to see how the mama company, if you will, headquarters, home office, was going to respond to Black Lives Matter. What kind of statement was going to be put out, and what was going to be put behind the statement. Don't just post a black box and say Black Lives Matter on this day and then you're done with it. What are you going to do to sort of retrain your ambassadors? What is coming out from home office? And so I kind of hit a crossroads and even determining if I still wanted to be a part of the company. And I would say that the response was where I needed it to be, to stay. And so, it's interesting because I didn't just, there were some hard conversations had, and I learned some stuff about some other ambassadors that I probably won't work with again, so.
Very good. Very good. Okay, as we come down home stretch with about 15 minutes to go.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this has been going pretty well. And I could probably talk to you ladies for days at a time because it's been such a good conversation. I wanted to shift just a bit to ask you some questions around, inspiration, if you will. So each of you, just in 30 seconds or less, can you just share some advice you might have for budding entrepreneurs or for women or men who are on this call, who are listening and trying to figure out where to begin or trying to figure out what they want to do next? You guys speak to that? Who wants to give that a shot first?
I'll try to go really quickly first. Try to remember the things that you used to love that maybe you let go of when you were trying to do what seemed like the right thing to do. Think back to you when you were just doing what you enjoyed and weren't getting paid for. Explore those things to look for your interests, and then allow yourself to I like to say win in increments. A lot of people look at like, oh, you're doing all these speaking gigs for Microsoft and whomever. How can I get to that stage? And like that required a lot of incremental steps and a lot of being willing to say, okay, I wrote this thing and that was a win. Like allow yourself to cheer for yourself before big launch day or whatever it's going to be, because it's going to take a lot of small steps to get to when you can actually make a big splash about something.
Mm-hmm. I would say show yourself grace. Don't overthink the small stuff that you don't need to overthink. You can always learn from others that are, successful in maybe the same box, but you don't have to, don't let comparison steal your joy. You get caught up going down this rabbit hole of comparing yourself to others and the trajectory of their business. That can really hem you up. So don't do it.
That's right. That comparative cancer, guys. Remember, from a comparison standpoint, when we look at things comparatively, we fail to see how great we can truly become. We're only just competing against the next person. So just remember that. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Mm-hmm.
I would say just start. Don't think about being perfect. There's the topic is presence over perfection. Yeah. And when you start with a solution to a problem. There's so many problems out there that needs to be solved. And the reason why I say start with a solution to a problem, there's this movie where I can't remember if it was The Wolf on Wall Street, but the goal was for him to sell a pen. And the guy said, hey, I want you to sell me this pen. So he took the pen and he said, hey, can you write me down that number? And he said, wait, but I need a pen. He said, okay, then buy the pen. So if you're going to start a business, start with a solution to a problem. That way that you can see sales. So you and this is just my personal opinion, you can start businesses, but if your business isn't a need or it's not solving a problem, you won't see the customers.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I agree with Tiffany.
As we move forward, I know the audience here, guys, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat so that we can round out with that. So what I'd like to do for the next 5 minutes while the questions come in, what I typically like to do is ask, a couple of philosophical questions, but I also like to ask some rapid fire questions that kind of, get people going. So I'm going to do a round robin first. The first question I'd like to ask, I'm gonna go with Keisha on this one. Keisha, if you could have dinner or drinks with any 3 icons, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
3. Okay. First, I'm gonna go with Maya Angelou. She taught me a lot about life, even though I never got a chance to meet her, and I would love to sit down with her. 2, Rihanna, the bad gal, because she models a lot to me about life and living on your own terms and bossing up on your own terms. Love her. And the 3rd would be, I would say Lenny Kravitz, because I interviewed him twice and he told me I was the best interviewer he had ever encountered in 30 years. And I feel like in the spirit of networking and building on one's business, I would like to have a chance to sit down and then let's take this conversation further, Mr. Kravitz. How can you now support the best interviewer you've ever experienced in growing her business? So that's what I would do.
Thank you, Keish. That's great. And by the way, Keish, you really look great interviewing Lenny, but you look just as good interviewing Will Smith too. Just so you know. You want to get that question? 3 people, three
Absolutely.
icons.
I would say Dapper Dan. Who is the fashion guy that put together Gucci and hip hop. Stevie Wonder, my favorite music artist of all time, and he's just the man, and I like what he's doing now. He's just like, I'll leave this country if I have to. And Jessica Harris, who's the author of High on the Hog. And I don't know if any of you have been watching the docu-series on Netflix. She has written cookbooks and is just the go-to person in regards to African food, the African food journey to the States and the world. And she seems really fun from the Netflix docu-series. Blue painted toenails and just a great energy. So I would like to eat and drink with her for sure.
That's good. Spoken like a true foodie. And Keith, you surprised me over there because I thought your favorite artist of all time was Prince, but so you threw me a curve there.
He's a close second. But Stevie, I can listen to every day, all day. You know.
Yep.
So.
Okay, a couple of quick questions. We're gonna get to the audience questions. So, Tiffany, what do you enjoy most? Is it teaching someone something or learning something new?
Oh gosh, that's hard. It depends on the day. Today it's learning something new.
Hey, okay, all right. And Crystal, which is more important, saving or spending?
That's a trick question.
It is.
They're all
So
binary.
here's what. I've coined myself somewhat of a financial healer and not a financial counselor. So
Okay.
I don't want, and I have no interest in fixing your credit score, disputing items on your credit report. I want to know why you keep buying things you can't afford. I want to know why you hoard your money and you don't have to. I want to know why you, I don't know, keep gambling at wherever and you know you don't have the money to. So I'm interested in that. Saving and spending are two totally different things, and you spend to save. I mean, you save to spend, so you know you can't spend if you don't have any money. So I would say saving is important, just to give an all-out answer, but I'm really not focused on that sort of financial counseling.
Okay.
More holistic counseling for me.
So, Keisha, what's the most important quality in a companion? Is it smarts or funny or humor? Choose one. Fate of the world depends on it.
I'm going with humor just because I feel like that's a different kind of intelligence. It's still a kind of intelligence, and it's quite delightful.
Mm-hmm. All right. So one question for all of you, real quickly. This should come up real quickly. What was the last thing you bought off Amazon?
I invested in my business and bought a Sony Alpha A6600 camera. I gave y'all a mighty coin on that.
Good. Krista, what you got? What's the last thing you bought off Amazon?
One of my girlfriend's dogs died, and she has a 6-year-old son, and he was devastated. So I bought him a super soaker and sent it to him.
Oh, that's good.
I purchased some graduation gifts off of someone's Amazon registry.
That's good.
And I purchased an embroidery machine.
Good look at Tiff, always paying it forward. Okay, so guys, thank you for that. Let's go to the questions from the audience. The first question is, are there any suggestions on how to bring your whole self to work instead of code switching?
Start off that way. You start off that way. You know,
yes.
I brought my natural hair to my interview. I'm professional, of course, but it's hard not to be me all the time. So you start off that way, and it will help to keep you that way. It's my advice.
Anyone else?
I think also recognize it's unfair that there may be a cost for that, but don't ignore that there is a cost to it. There's a TED Talk with this woman named Jodi Ann Bury where she says it's much easier to be who you are when who you are is all around you. And so some people just have an easier path. So I would say bring your whole self, but at the same time, understand what might need to change in the environment to make it less of a tax on people to do so. So it's not just the people bringing the self, but also the environment needs to be shifting to be more accepting of more people at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Krista?
I am known by and large in the area as someone who will quit a job. That's why I work for myself, because I don't like to work for other people. And so this job I have now has only been tax season long, but it's the longest job I probably ever had, because I do not, if I can't be my whole entire self, I cannot work with you. Like, life is too short. As Black women, Black people, we have a lot on our plate. We have forces coming against us from every direction, and I'm not going to choose a force purposely to come against me. So if you have the opportunity to not take a job in the first place and do your own thing, do that. So you don't have to worry about code switching and doing any of that. But if I had to give some advice, it would be like Ms. Keep said and Ms. Keisha said, to come in the door as you and nobody else.
Tiff?
I agree with what Keisha and Adrian said. Couldn't align more.
Uh-huh. All right, no, that's all good. So another question in the chat was, can you guys speak to how you pick your battles? Sort of like the decision tree for when you're going in or when you're going to sit back and let it ride. Who can speak to that?
I would say I pick my battles based on the goal.
Okay.
If there's no proper goal, if there's no proper goal at the end, it's not worth me fighting, at the end of the day. If it's not, and when it comes to picking your battles, you have to say, okay, what's the benefit of me fighting this? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? So it's so important. And at work, there's a lot of those where I'm like, okay, I'm not fighting this one. It's okay.
But when you work for large matrix organizations, there's always going to be some battles. So you're right, Tiff. You pick. Choose wisely too. Choose wisely. Go ahead.
Look, Auntie Maxine says protect your peace. So think about that too.
There will be times where people will try to send you into the battle because, you have the skills, you have the thing, you can actually be the one to represent this, and you might have to pull yourself out of some battles. What I've realized in doing the culture work that I do in the DEI space, there are some things that are so long standing that are not going to change. And you might get in your head thinking, but it's me, I'm here, I'm the one who can make a change. And advice that was given to me was, if the work tears you apart, if you are in here grinding and the work is tearing you apart, trying to bump up a big machine that's going to outlive you, then it's doing the work of, I would say, white supremacy. Like, it's actually going to destroy a Black woman. If the work is going to destroy a Black woman, that is the work, that is not the work you want to be contributing to. So save yourself in the spirit of saving the people. Like, you can't put yourself out there and grind yourself into dust for everything. There might be somebody else who can tackle it, or the battle actually might not even be worth it for anyone to touch. But definitely don't sacrifice yourself in the name of a goal that isn't for you.
Well, ladies, I think we are just about at the end of time. It is about a minute and a half left. Any parting shots before I close out? Any parting shots from the ladies?
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for inviting us. Thank everyone for viewing.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. This is fantastic.
And it has been fun. Thank you.
Great to meet all of you.
Thank you, ladies, for joining me today. Presence over perfection is not just the title of this. It's really the way that I live my life. I just try to show up the best I can in that moment, and then just be unapologetically me. So there'll be some toe stuff, some finger slammed in doors, but that's okay, because we'll live to tell about it, right? So, and thanking you for being here. I just want to say first, thank you for interrupting your Cabo vacation to join us. I know it took a lot, but I really appreciate it. And I know, Tiff, I know you stepping outside of your day job and your regular job to kind of give me an hour. And I know how hard the hours have come by here. So thank you for that. Crystal, I'm sure with this time of season going on, I know the official tax season just passed, but all your snail pace ones are still coming up behind you. You're doing work for them. So thank you for that. And then Keisha, I know you're on a mission and you got some real cool stuff on the horizon. So, keep plugging and keep pushing. And I know Microsoft is much like Amazon in that there's always something for you to be doing. So guys, remember at the end, ladies, this Black Girl Magic is phenomenal. And remember that you don't have to be perfect, but you got to be present. So show up, presence over perfection. I love you all. Thank you so much. And until the next time.
Take care, guys. Nice meeting you.